Welcome to the Candid podcast, your go-to spot for all things health and wellness and a no-nonsense take on the industry. I'm your host, Tyler Cuthbertson. In a world full of conflicting advice and hidden agendas, we're here to cut through the noise and provide unbiased information and debates for you. This podcast is about pulling back the curtains and giving unfiltered, raw information about health and wellness. We're here to share data without the need to satisfy shareholders or filter out info for profit. We also offer communion and debates with any viewer with opposing ideals, so DM us for a chance to be a guest in the future. Today's episode is with Juan Sossa as a part of our guest series. In this episode, we discuss credibility in modern studies, opinions on certain dietary protocols, our takes on the industry, and more. Make sure to check out our media pages at Candid Media Podcast on YouTube and at The Real Candid Podcast on Instagram. Now enjoy the show. I want to start with, I want to let people know your name and your occupation, credentials, stuff like that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so name's Juan Sossa.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I just do sales. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, sales is awesome. It's the most versatile skill, so can't blame you. All right, so the first question is, do you think the primary source of all dietary and nutritional information, this being colleges and large corporations, are a reliable source for information, and why?
I think the best information that we have is history, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you consider what has been done in the past, um, then I believe that you could have a proper analysis or proper judgment of what's necessary in the future, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we consider, right, like the Macedonian Empire, right, with like Alexander the Great. This was an era where there were a lot of wars going on, right? This was a guy that ruled an empire at the age of 26. And I can only imagine the fleet of army that he must have had. But even then, it always talks about in history how he was constantly outnumbered, but yet he remained undefeated. Undefeated so much as to a point where other people gave up their voluntary rights to fight. And they just said, hey, listen, take my lands, because I'm not even going to try it with you. And so he was always outnumbered 1-2. So how was he always successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had a team, of course, right? It's not just the one man show, but you got to ask yourself, how did that team look like? So if we take it really, really, really kind of going back to dates, most of these people um, were fed a diets that was unlike ours, right? If you look at most African cultures, they're eating liver, they're eating heart, they're eating spleen, they're eating organs.
Yep.
They're putting themselves in situations where they eat to live rather than live to eat. So if you can look at the past, I think that it's pretty evident what you should do in the future.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right. What diet particularly piques your interest and why?
I would definitely say a diet that is, of course, 100% animal based, right? I would, and this is just my personal opinion, I would shy away from salmon. I would shy away from tuna. I would shy away from seafood, oysters. I would only stick to red meat, preferably grass fed.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just have fruits. Right now, that's the thing about fruits, right? Every fruit is really different. If you consider, possibly like the acidity of certain fruits, like for instance, pineapple. I myself, I have irritable bowel syndrome, right? So I have like issues with like my, gut microbiome, right? Sometimes pineapple can be a little bit sensitive for me. So maybe it's best for me to have something else, maybe like banana, right?
Yeah.
So those are things to consider, but overall, just to answer the question, fruits and red meat.
Great. Yeah, animal based is awesome. All right. What is your opinion on a veggie-based slash vegetarian diet?
So, um, I think that there's obviously some type of social cultural advancement of the vegetarian diet, right? It hasn't really been something that has been adopted for generations. It's only become something so recent.
Hmm.
And I would probably say that if we've come this far, to stick with what works from, and I'm just paraphrasing here, right? From my understanding, a vegan diet is not going to have as much bioavailable nutrition as a carnivore and an omnivore diet, right? So
Right.
things that have to deal with um, being a vegetarian, you're going to suffer a lot of serious consequences, right? Kidney stones, eczema, asthma. Um, these are the results of a lack of nutrition. And if you participate in situations where you have a very low amount of vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin B, even possibly omega 3, right? As well,
Hmm.
because you get a lot of them from red meat, you're gonna be you're gonna be hurting yourself, right? If we look at most skeletal muscle, right, the amount of bone density that you should have in your body, you're gonna have to have a certain requisite to be able to function in your day to day, especially if you have a job where you have to, or if you've got to transit and do any type of duty. So putting yourself in that
Right.
position, you'd be doing yourself a disservice. That's what I think. But I mean, then again, everybody's subject to their own opinion, right? That's why it's called opinion.
Right. Of course. Yeah, and everything does depend on other factors as well, like what you ate as a child, because that's when your gut microbiome adapts and things like that. But overall, I do agree with that. Okay, so do you think the health and wellness industry has improved over the last 50 years or potentially gotten worse?
I would say I would say mm, it depends, right? I'd say it's gotten better,
Mm,
but is it our choice to get better? You got to ask yourself that question, right? Is it our voluntary choice to get better? For instance, if you want to start a omnivore diet, right, and you want to go to your nearest wholesaler, right, are you really going to find a bunch of liver, organs, heart, spleen for wholesale? Probably not, right?
right.
You're probably going to see whatever's propagated out to the public. So
Correct. Yeah.
I would I would say that we've advanced in terms of technology, health, and wellness, but I think I think it's very clear that there's agendas that are being pushed out.
Hmm.
And is it really a matter of whether we can do something about it, or is it really a choice? I think those are questions I would ask after that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it has improved as well. There's so much more information available, and it's also at everyone's fingertips. But like you said, there's a lot of information being thrown in our faces as propaganda and things like that, which it does. A lot of those things being thrown in our faces are from people who don't have our best interest in mind and things like that. So, all right. Next question. In your opinion, what factors determine a study that is accurate and has your best interest in mind?
Um, I would say definitely what would determine a proper study is a consistent study. I'd say look at what works and look at what's clearly obvious. Don't be skewed by the media. Develop your own opinion and really educate yourself. Right. Really put in the hours. Really put in the time. Really put in the research. Really understand psychology and and the dynamics of motives of other individuals. Right. If you're hearing a certain study, right, then you've got to ask yourself, well, where is it coming from? And does this make sense? Right. For instance, I mean, I'll just give one example. Right. There are forever chemicals in our pots and pans. Right.
Hmm.
This is literally what we cook out of. Right.
Right.
And no one would have thought that this would have arised a concern, but it did. Right.
Yeah.
Next study after that, there aren't any human trials or any human tests, but apparently nowadays, you know, having any type of polyester as underwear around the crotch area is actually, not ideal. It can actually lower sperm count and increase infertility.
Hmm.
So I think kind of just seeing just some type of trend of just, hey, detergent's bad. The pots and pans that you use are bad. The underwear that you wear is possibly bad. We know
Yeah.
that EMFs are bad, right?
Hmm.
It's just like everything is kind of trailing down this this little ant pile, and eventually we're gonna get to a point where we're the guinea pigs, right? We're gonna be the ones um to actually suffer the inadequacy of our consequences or the lack of knowledge that's out there,
Right.
right? Most
Yeah.
people don't know, and most people don't care, right? So when you have that mix, it's never really too good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think really the number one factor is whether they have your best interest in mind, and that's obviously very hard to come across because nowadays it's all about profit and fulfilling shareholders. So you really can't just come across a company that has your best interest in mind and wants you to be healthy. Of course, you can find them, but often they'll charge you more and all that good stuff. So,
Mhm.
all right, let's see. Okay, so how do you see carbohydrates as it relates to energy output?
I would definitely say that a carbohydrate is not the enemy. You
Hmm.
could mitigate carbohydrates, but you can't eliminate them.
Yeah.
For instance, um, from like I'm Hispanic, right? So for some reason, right? And I say for some reason because I have it in my head, but then I ask myself like, where did I even get this from, right? And I think that over time, as you're in certain environments, you'll kind of stick to things, and you might not even understand truly why you stick to them and why they even make sense, but you still do it regardless. Carbohydrates is one thing that has been very public around the media, which is how to lower carbohydrates and be in a state of ketosis, right?
Hmm.
Now, the only reason to be in a state of ketosis, in my personal opinion, would be for aesthetics, right? Because I guess the whole idea is to burn fat, right? And I guess retain as much, body muscle, right? Which really serves, in my opinion, no functional purpose. I feel like it's important to have fat. But carbohydrates, I would basically say that it's not the enemy. Like you can get it from fruits, you can get it from different sources.
Totally.
And make sure that you're getting it from a source that is reputable and has a track record of success. And if you don't believe it, then I invite you to try it. I invite you to at least spend 1 week literally just eating a bunch of apples or a bunch of bananas, if that's all you have access to, right? Alongside red meat, of course, right? I
Yep.
would say, not
Yep.
just and just try it out, right? Don't take our words for it. Try it out yourself. Put a challenge for yourself. Next 7 days, I'm gonna do nothing but just eat red meat and fruits, right? And see how you feel, right? I think every body is different, but then I think every body is just as similar in design, right?
Yeah. We've
So
all
that's what
adapted
I
to
would
do
say.
the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, do you think that anyone can become healthy with their situation? And if so, how?
Anyone could be healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think you can. I think anyone can, but I think you have to embody certain characteristics about yourself to get to that level. I think one of them is discipline.
Of
I
course.
feel like if you have a track record of failing yourself, then it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to put yourself under very, repetitive tasks, you know.
Yeah.
So I think discipline is one. I think being comfortable with repetition, being comfortable with what's boring, is important too. This is not going to be a sexy diet. This is not going to be a sexy lifestyle. This is
Hmm.
not going to be something where you go to Thanksgiving, or you go to like a bar or a club or a social gathering, or even just like a casual like restaurant around the neighborhood. it's not really going to be something sexy, right? It's going to be something boring, but it's going to be something necessary.
Absolutely.
So it's up to you to decide what is more important to you. What do you gauge as more significant, right? Because in the, I think in the in the quest of trying to be healthier is also a quest within yourself. It's always going to be you versus you. We're always going to have weak moments, and I think that's acceptable. I'll even share a weak moment of mine. Me being on this diet myself, Christmas just rolled around,
Hmm.
and like I'm going around, my wholesaler and everything like that, like Sam's Club. That's like a Costco for people that don't know, and basically I'm seeing all these people with like cakes and all these sweets, and a part of me was like, wow, like I'm really gonna spend Christmas like this, like, and this is not like as attractive as the ideal picture would look like, right? But it's not about that, right? You have a duty to serve yourself, and if you find that your self-esteem or your self-valuation about yourself is valuable, if you respect yourself, then you would put that to the highest standard, right? Kings eat only king food. Peasants eat like pigs. My question is, who do you want to be, right? So
Right.
that's what I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, and another thing to add to that is really a lot of the health things that people look into. I mean, I think people overcomplicate health big time. So, I mean, let's look at fasting, for example. You could argue it's the most accessible thing you can do for your health, but like you said, it's definitely not sexy. It can be very dreadful, uh, and it's certainly not fun if you're beginning it, but it's something anyone can do as unbelievable effects. I mean, you can watch your waistline slim down by multiple inches if you fast for 2 days. Not that that's easy, but I mean, it's got crazy benefits. But yeah, I think anyone can be healthy. That Paul Saldino guy, have you seen the that video where he really shows off that you can live off of a plant-based diet? Just go into Sam's Club or Costco, and he even goes to like 7-Eleven and he can find plant-based stuff there. So the truth is anyone can be healthy, and it's just down to you. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I would actually say, because I've seen this thing going around, and I'll bring this up, right? Which is where most people would kind of argue, well, I don't have the time, right? Like I don't have the time. I don't have the mental space or the time in my day to get a couple pots and pans and figure out my nutrition and get that together. And I think that maybe sometimes is distracted by all the noise that you see on the internet. Because if you look at the perfect diet, it has all this fancy crap, right? And so we're so bombarded with what we have to make rather than just what we need, right? So most people want to go to the specifics when they don't even, pay regard to the basics.
hmm
So,
totally.
for instance, a carnivore diet or an omnivore diet really doesn't have to be so time consuming. It really doesn't, right? Because you've eliminated the noise, you've eliminated the bullshit, right? So now you don't have to think about, bread, pasta, rice, lentils, beans,
Mhm.
vegetables. You don't have to think about sauces. You don't have to think about, you know, um, like those that culinary side of just. So what I was basically saying was that a lot of people, right, will kind of find resistance to executing this diet because of time. I understand resources because you'll still need to prepare your own food, cook it, get a pot, get a pan, right? So you'll definitely need a roof over your head, right, to do this.
Mhm.
But time is usually the largest excuse that I hear. And what I was trying to go ahead and elaborate on or unravel was that most most food or most culinary etiquette as we know today is usually that food pyramid, right? A bunch of
Mhm.
pasta, a bunch of bread,
Yeah.
oils, all this fancy crap, right? Like if you look at any movie in regards to food and cooking, it's not going to be solely carnivore and just fruits,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
It's going to be a bunch of stuff. So I would invite someone to consider that this diet is actually very simple, because in the simplicity arrives the solution, right? What is the simplicity? Red meat or organs. And if you don't have organs, then desiccated organs, right? You can get them in tablets or pills, right? Just make sure that you're, consuming enough of, enough of a dosage, right, to actually feel the effects of either liver, spleen, or heart, whatever you may, choose.
Hmm.
And have fruits. Fruits are very, very cheap. It's very, very simple because you actually don't have to have any type of preparation. If you wanted to have any type of preparation, you could put fucking honey, right?
Hmm.
But that's as much as it gets. And the meat just has to be cooked. And you could just get butter or ghee, right? I know people talk about avocado oil or coconut oil. I would try to shy away from that if possible, right? I know that there's worse oils, of course, but ideally butter, right? Grass fed, of course. But a diet can be very, very simple to implement, and it does not have to take a lot of your time. It really doesn't have to. It's really up to you and your choice. If you want to be picky, if you want to, try to be fancy in the kitchen, then it will be, right? But if you keep it simple, then it will be, right? So that's
Yeah, yeah, I like that point a lot. Um, and another thing is once you're once you're at a level where you've been eating clean for a while, the the urge to eat junk food is outweighed, or let me rephrase that. The feeling of being healthy and the urge to stay that way outweighs the urge to eat any junk food, and the feeling, just that great feeling you wake up every morning and you can just tell you're at your peak, that excitement and that feeling completely outweighs any urge to eat pumpkin pie or whatever else might bring urges to you. So, yeah, I think anyone who's been on a clean diet for a while will tell you that it's infinitely better than spoiling yourself.
yeah, absolutely. And our body is much like a machine,
Hmm.
and you've got to consider, what does this machine have to do, right? What are the tasks? If your task is nothing, then it's, it might be maybe a reason to not even start a diet at all, because what would you have to use your body for, right? If you're like most people, right, that are the working class, then you'll find that you have a lot to do throughout the day, and you have a big reason to make sure that you upkeep your system. That you make sure that this weight that you hold, that you walk with, is not a bargain, but a tool to make you better, a tool to grasp as much information quicker than the rest. If you want to dominate the competition, right, um, you've got to be better than them, right? And you're only going to do that by feeding it yourself an adequate diet, getting enough rest, and putting yourself in a position to win. So that's why I would go ahead and say that the feeling that you get out of this diet, and I'm sure that you can attest to this too, it's nothing like I've ever felt ever in my life. I feel so much strength. I feel so much power. Um, I have
Hmm.
so much energy, and you feel like you kick life's ass before it kicks yours,
Oh yeah.
right? You go to life. Life doesn't just go to you. It doesn't come knocking on your door saying, "Hey, like, time to go to the restroom," right? Or like, "Hey, like, not today, man. Like, you're gonna be slow today." You know.
Hmm.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Uh, the way I like to describe it, I explained this on Thanksgiving actually, kind of a guilt trip on the family. But I was saying that when you've been eating clean for a while, eventually your body adapts. Like for example, when you're eating junk, you are kind of throwing in random poisons that your body can't really identify. That being, seed oils and whatever colorings you got in there. And your body has to work its hardest just to regulate your body's hormones, your energy levels, stuff like that. And of course, your body can't work properly with that. But once you start eating things that are purely organic and your body, at least our biology is adapted to be good at processing and using, it's like a perfect, like all your hormones are triggered at the right moment. They follow along each other right. Your gut health becomes good, which is so fundamental. I mean, nobody with a bad gut is going to have a good mood. Uh, so it's, and like you said, the the way it makes you feel is powerful, and that's something you can't replicate with anything else because the way your mind feels is, your perception, and that's the most fundamental thing a human can have is just their perception of reality. And when you wake up every morning and feel like you have way more energy, you feel more happy, and that's only something you can get from eating right and fueling your body with the proper stuff. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a great discussion, man. You got some good points.
Yeah. And I think um I think something that's important to mention as well is, we've gotten our body used to, can you hear me well? Just making sure.
Yeah, yeah,
We've gotten our bodies used to all the crap that we fed it, right? Now that's relative, right? Because depends kind of, what age group you're in, what's your demographic, what you've eaten more of, what you've eaten less of. Um, but this isn't going to be something, this isn't going to be a straight arrow, right? At least for myself, I'm speaking for myself. Maybe you can give your take on it too. But in the beginning stages, this is going to be foreign and your body will adapt,
hmm
but you're going to have withdrawals from
yeah,
the toxic relief system that your body has imposed, because right now it's like, in okay, well, this person is now giving me real food, well, now I got to get rid of all this garbage, so you're probably going to feel hangry.
totally.
Your BMR is probably high if maybe you're obese, right? So maybe you're used to a certain amount of caloric intake, so you're probably going to be annoyed, you're probably going to be hungry, you're probably going to be used to binge eating, right? Snacking throughout the day, right? So there is a there is a window, I would say, of mental preparation that you must have to set the standards and expectations of what this means for you, because it is a double-edged sword. There are both strengths in this and weaknesses of this. For instance, right now myself, if I went and I had myself a cake with pasta and Alfredo sauce and barbecue and honey mustard and ate a bunch of French fries, I would probably be in the restroom screaming right now. It would be horrible, right? But it wouldn't be nearly as bad as the person that's been eating junk food every fucking day,
Of course.
right? So consider that the moment you do this, it is kind of almost like a lifestyle, because it's going to be very difficult for you to participate in social gatherings, because you're going to be so disencouraged to eat things that are bad for you, because you already know what's going to be, the result of that. So really understand what you're signing yourself up for, and realize that your body is not just like a pair of shoes where you just take you just, I'm going to put on some blue shoes, I'm going to put on some red shoes, I'm going to put on some black shoes. You got to give your body time to adapt, and you've got to give it a proper window to actually gauge if this is something beneficial for you. So if you feel hangry, if you feel discouraged, if you feel weak, if you feel like agitation, anxiety, because these can be symptoms of withdrawing all the toxins from your body,
Yep.
because you've eaten a lot of crap.
hmm
And if you don't believe me, think about the last 7 things you ate this whole week and look at an ingredient list. That is everything your body has to decompose of. That takes time, my friends.
Oh yeah.
So you're gonna have to make sure that.
Yeah. Well, like with any endeavor, the beginning stages are usually the hardest, and that's just the
Correct.
part you're gonna have to push through because, like you just highlighted very well, your body's adapted to process these terrible things, and all of a sudden you're switching it up, which uh, I don't want to say you should switch out of it slowly and continue eating junk food. I think you should. Uh, I mean, it sounds a little harsh, but make a pretty drastic change immediately. But yeah, I mean, it will suck pretty bad initially, but that's just part of the whole thing. And at the end of the tunnel is the body you've been wanting, and just that great feeling. So it's totally worth it. Everyone would agree.
Exactly, right. And it really just comes down to, like, I mean, do you want it or you don't? Like, it's
Yep.
just, that's as simple as that. Like,
It's 100% up to you.
if you want it, then do it. If you don't don't waste your fucking time and keep eating your crap. Simple as
Yep.
that, you know? Like, it's
Yep.
pretty obvious what is good for you and what's not good for you, right? And I think what's really funny is like I was um I was in the chat, right? And I was looking at like basically, everything that everybody's talking about, like, about diet and nutrition.
In Capital Club.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
And I'll see a lot of great ideas, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I see a lot of great ideas, right? Like, and to be honest, I'm not super educated on it, but I'll see a lot of like, potions or a lot of like, remedies, like this is amazing, that's amazing, like all this type of stuff. And I would tell someone to master the art of simplicity in the diet first before going to anything kind of complicated, right? You don't want to reinvent the wheel. I think maybe that's why people maybe just don't even start in the first place, because there's so much information out there. It's very, very difficult to separate between truth and fallacies, right? So
Yeah.
I would say that this is a diet that is very, very simple, so
And the diet you're referring to is the animal based. Is that right?
no, man, it's vegan. Yeah, it's animal based.
Yeah. These. I'm sure a lot of our viewers will not like the amount of hate we put on the vegan diet. I just filmed a little short video on why the vegetarian diet is not realistic, because primarily because of course there's insufficient protein. And a lot of the arguments they make is that, well, there were certain tribes around the world who, cavemen who only ate vegetables because that was the only thing that was bioavailable. And the argument I make is that there wasn't sufficient protein to sustain a dynamic lifestyle, and they had to be a dynamic in order to live. And when you look at vegans and vegetarians now, they have to have vegan burgers or vegan protein shakes to even have enough protein, which to me just proves that it's not a sustainable diet. You have to add things to it for it to even work. So, yeah,
Right. Yeah, and there's a whole movement, right? And I think food, as much as like a financial system, gets a lot of a political rep to it. Because I do think it is political, right? I think once you start speaking about someone's food, once you start speaking about someone's pockets, what currency they trust, it gets very, very political, and very, very quickly. And most movements or advancements are leaning towards synthetic, meats, right? Synthetic food,
hmm
right? Now, you can look at it from two lenses, right? You could look at it from, okay, well, this is the advancement of technology, right? Like, this is a good thing, right? Or you could look at it from, okay, well, it's obvious, it's going to be a lot easier to distribute. It's going to be a lot easier to retain certain food. You can, mass market it out to a public. It will advance other people's agendas. So you can never really put your trust 110% in that type of gamble, because at that point you're a guinea pig, right?
yeah, totally.
So eating things that are real, that's the closest thing that we've got, right?
Yeah, organic.
Um, correct. Yeah, eating what's real, uh, gravitating yourself in a position where you can seek truth, right? I think that's important.
Yeah,
Because a lot of the stuff out there, it's we live in a capitalistic society. If we were in a mountain and we had to, scavenge for our own food, I'd argue that you could probably have a lot more trust in your community.
of course.
But
Yeah,
we live in a capitalistic society where it's one person on the floor, and as a result of that, someone else rises. You
yeah.
know,
hmm
someone falls as a result of someone winning. So my question is, who are you, right? And diabetes is a real thing. If I'm not mistaken, and and I'm paraphrasing right here, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that um for every three people that you meet, they're either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So I mean, and it's a very big claim, but I mean, think about the frequency that people eat. It's not just what are you eating, but what's the frequency that you eat. Most
Yeah.
people eat 5, 6 times a day. 3 times is probably enough, even more if you're eating a very inadequate diet.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Something people don't talk about enough is the frequency and the timing of your food.
yeah,
It's actually pretty important and nobody really talks about it. That should be a discussion sometime.
correct. Yeah. So I would say that this is a good thing. Um, I would I would say like this is almost kind of like I don't really like to see it as like, animal based diet black, vegan diet white.
Hmm.
I kind of like to see it like if the vegans are going to do their thing, um then let's let the let's let the community decide, right? Let's let them use their knowledge, use their resources, take the time to do their due diligence and research, and try things out,
Yeah.
experiment on themselves,
Hmm.
right? Don't take our words for it.
Oh
These are
yeah.
just ideas that have these are practices that have led us through generations, and we establish our trust on it because we recognize the track record it's had and the effect it's had on our own lives. So if you're a vegan or you're on a different type of diet, it's not a club, right? It's an invitation of experimenting on your body.
Right.
Obviously, use your common sense when I say that, right? But experiment it in a way where you can understand, okay, well, how does my body react if I just devote 2 weeks, 1 week, maybe even a month, have enough of a sample size to really understand what the effects are of this diet, right? If you look at most food pyramids out there, you go to a doctor's office, you're already programmed in your brain to already see that food pyramid as, the metric.
Hmm.
Um, we obviously kind of, not, I wouldn't say go against that, but we obviously, are on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Hmm.
And it's really just up to the viewers to hear this information and gauge within their own consensus what's an appropriate route for them. We
Yeah.
know what's an appropriate route for us, and of course, what other people do, it doesn't really bother me because it's their lives, right? If they want to eat vegan, they can eat vegan. But we're just sharing information that could be out there because if there's going to be free choice, then there's got to be an opportunity to unravel as much information as possible. You can't make a decision without information. And that's what we're here for, right? We're here to unravel that information.
Yeah. We're here to primarily show the information that is kind of hidden from the common man. A lot of the information now is things that are purported by people who don't have our best interest at mind and from people who have hidden agendas and want to fulfill shareholders and things like that. But those are the same people who hide the whole caveman stuff and animal-based things, and we're here to shine light on that. So, and a point you just made about, yeah, don't trust us, do your own research. I think that's a great point. Luke Belmar says that pretty often. I think seriously, anyone watching, don't trust us. Try out your own stuff, see what works out for you, do your own research. But we're trying to inform you that a lot of the research you can do does not have your best interest at mind, and uh, yeah, we just want you to follow that.
Right. And I would also you know, I would also ask yourself um, maybe question everything, right? If you look in the mirror while you're naked and you look at your whole body, right? Everything from the amount of muscle that you have to your neck, your traps, your shoulders, your rear delts, to your glutes, your legs, all the way down to your crotch. Like, really ask yourself, is this as optimal as I could be? And I'm not speaking from a fitness standpoint. Like, I'm not speaking could I go to the gym every single day and have the ideal physique? Is this truly what you were meant to be? Is this truly what you were meant to be? Is this truly what the result of evolution was supposed to be? Right? Um, Ask yourself that. Look at old pictures. war veterans, right? I mean, there's a reason why they've lived so long and, they still smoke cigarettes, right? You got to really ask yourself that question. Do that research, see what has happened in the past 20, 40 years. There's a lot of great knowledge out there that you could just absorb with in as quick as a button, and it's accessible to everyone. If you have internet, you could search it up online, do your research, and really ask yourself questions, right? This right here is it's interesting that we even need to have these conversations, right? Because there's just so much fallacy out online,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and I think that's really funny, right? Like, I think we've kind of almost maybe gone backwards as a society as much as we think we've gone forwards, right?
Yeah.
Because now the conversations are, well, what should I eat, right? And what time should I eat? And um, is this really bad? Like, we've gone from sending planes to the sky to these conversations, and I think it's good to kind of put this out into the universe, because if people want to seek truth, they must not seek us, but they must seek information and um, form their own opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we know what works for us. I ate a terrible diet. I'll kind of shed some light on that. Like, I ate gas station food, like stuff that was in boxes,
Mm-hmm.
probably expired. Honestly, if I'm going to be honest, and even then, I mean, it's still horrible. I ate honey buns every day. I ate Wendy's. I had to walk to go to school. I had to walk to go to work. I didn't really have a lot of money, but even then, I wasn't even really informed. Maybe if I had done my due diligence, or had some type of mentorship, or had some type of voice in my ear to kind of maybe, plant a seed, um, maybe I wouldn't have been in as much trash as I did. And I mean, I gotta say, like, I affected my health pretty bad. I mean, I ended up getting a colonoscopy, um, which is like, it's an operation that they give to people at around 50 to 55,
Oh
just in case
yeah.
they have like
Yeah,
cancer
we
or
talked about
whatever.
this last time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I was literally like, I was so bad. It was so bad that I had to go to a colonoscopy. And by the way, I'm 18. I'm 19 at this time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's crazy. Like, to think that I'm doing an operation for someone that should be at least 30, 35 years plus my age, like, that's not coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. That is choice. And I'm the one at fault of that, right? Not my parents, because I have the same access that everybody does, um, listening to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you make some great points. My phone is at 2%, so it'll die soon. So I want to wrap this
That's
up
okay.
before it kind of cuts us off. But
That's fine. No,
yeah, I really appreciate you showing up. This was great. I like the community we have.
of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, I look forward to having you back on sometime. I think you have a lot of value to share. So yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah.
Thanks for watching today's episode. We hope you've learned something valuable. The Candid podcast also offers personal training for up to 2 weeks free for a select number of viewers, so grab the offer while you can.